Mr. Schlereth, what are your immediate and instant thoughts about what seems like is going to be a crazy NFL trade deadline?
Yeah, I mean, the Jets have already given all away their two best players, right? Their two superstars, and Quentin Williams is gone now, and Sauce Gardner gone. So, yeah, I mean, it is always interesting this time of year to see, trades and how they happen, and so it's always kind of fun to follow. But I mean, it is what it is. It's part of the business now, and with the salaries and the exorbitant salaries, sometimes if you're not very good, you're just trying to dump salary for cost certainty, which is draft picks. But I personally, I grew up in a time and grew up in an organization under Joe Gibbs when I was with Washington that believed in, hey, we'll always trade, for a known commodity. We'll trade unknown commodities for a known commodity. If I know a guy can play, he's already proven that he can play, I'd rather have that guy than a draft pick. And the first round is still, a 50% bust ratio. So, get rid of him, sure, if you want to, but I'd rather have a guy I know can play.
Patriots are 7-2, winners of 6 in a row, inarguably almost at this point, now one of the best teams in football. If you were running that operation, do you think they have enough players, enough dudes in the building to get after it and make a Super Bowl run, or do you think they're a player or two away and need to be active by 4 p.m.?
Listen, I always think that, you got to 7-2 because you're pretty damn good, right? And there's always, you can always use another, pass rusher. You can always use another player. But I think part of the issue that you always get into is you want the right player. You want the right type of guy. You want a guy that, that adds and adheres to your culture, doesn't take away from it. And so I think there's always some risk reward involved in doing that. And the other thing is, what do you have to give up to get a really good player? At what point, and does that player that you try to get, does he have a contract that's suitable for you going forward? So I think there's a lot of things involved in doing that. I mean, for the Jets, it's just about salary dump at this point, right? So I get that, but I think you always have to be careful when you have a team that has a lot of great things going for it and is playing really well, and has got tied with Indianapolis and Denver for the best records in the AFC. I just think you've always got to be really careful about who you bring into your building.
Insider calls are brought to you by Nationwide for your insurance and financial needs. Nationwide is on your side. Obviously, there you're sort of referencing culture and some of that. But I was also wondering what your perspective was on positions that are maybe plug and play, or positions where you'd be a little more hesitant and say, well, we're 9 weeks into the season. Is it going to take them a month to get up to speed? What are some of the spots that you think you can trade for and get instant return? And what are some of the others that you'd be a little more hesitant?
Yeah, well, I think that on the defense, if you line up and have a pass rusher, those guys are pretty much plug and play. That works. Or if you have an elite level kind of shut down corner where you can say, hey man, you're in lock in this particular coverage. You're just locking this guy up, and we're gonna kick the coverage to the opposite side of the field where we're gonna get double teams and all that kind of stuff. So those are kind of plug and play. Receiver can be to the extent where you say, hey man, you're involved in this 3 wide package. You're gonna be the X running the individual route. So a lot of times when you call an offense, you'll call an X, they call it an X individual. So you'll call that route. So you may say, hey, man, we're going to be in trips right nasty, and we're going to run 2-jet Buffalo X comeback or X slant or X go or whatever. And so you get that front side. So, your trips right or whatever it is, you get that front side combination called, and then the back side is just an X individual. So you can plug those guys in there, and there's a few nuanced things, but a slant is a slant, a go's a go, a comeback's a comeback, all that kind of stuff you can put in and have that guy be pretty ready to roll in a couple days' time.
Regarding how the Patriots game went this past Sunday, Mark, obviously Pats looked like they were in position to run away with it. And then Drake makes a bad turnover at the end of the first half, puts the Falcons back into it. And in the end, your missed extra point from a kicker who was just kicked to the curb away from being a tie game and possibly losing that game. How do you handle it in the building the week after you won a game that, should feel like a win, but almost kind of felt like a loss?
Yeah, I think the thing about those, like, it's hard to win. It's hard to put a 6-game win streak together. That is hard to do in the NFL. And so, you always look at a win. You always got to be happy with the win. But sometimes those close wins, those, things that almost get away from you. You mentioned, the Drake Maye strip sack fumble that almost gets returned for a touchdown, interception where he overthrows an inbreaker and gets picked off by Bates, the safety. Like, you look at some of those things and you're saying, hey, guys, like, here are the things that if we play a good team is going to cost us a victory. And so sometimes that tape is the best tape to coach off of because you didn't have the loss. It feels somewhat like a loss, but you still got the win. But guys are more receptive to being coached up than they are when you beat somebody by 35 points. So oftentimes I think those are some of the best teaching tool tapes that you can have.
Mark, I believe you're the one who has said to us that you believe that sacks are a quarterback statistic. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so building off of that, Drake Maye has been sacked 6 times in each of the last 2 games, 34 times on the season. What do you see there? What can he do to improve on that? What's that working in concert with the line? What do you make of all that?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot. Not having looked at all of them, I'll give you, for instance, last week I did Jacksonville Raiders, and it's for Jacksonville they gave up 7 sacks 2 weeks in a row, and so I'm looking at all the sacks given up, and if you go to the game before, they had given up 7 sacks in the game before last week when they played the Raiders, and I went through the tape with a fine-tooth comb, and I 5 of those sacks, 5 of the 7. I gave to the quarterback. This is a quarterback sack. This is a quarterback sack. And, I actually asked Liam Cohen, and I go, is that fair? And he goes, absolutely, 100% fair. And so I think when you start to look at those things, a couple of things happen. Like when you watch Drake Maye play, and I've done several of the games, like there's a lot of front side of progression, 1 to 2, to buy myself some time and scramble. And so what would help him get off some of the sacks is 1 to 2 to check down, 1 to 2 to check down. And that's something I know that they're working on. Hey, listen, 1 to 2 to take off and scramble. He's made a lot of big plays. He made some big plays yesterday or Sunday doing that. So that's not altogether a bad thing. But if you can just get to your check down or to the third read in your progression a little bit more quickly, get through the first 2, eliminate them, and get to the third read a little more quickly, that would take some pressure off an offensive line. So I think there's always those things that you look at and you say, hey, can we get improvement on those things? Yep. But at the same time, you don't want to take away that explosive playmaking ability that he's shown when he takes off and runs either. So it's a fine line. You're winning right now. Those are good things. Those are the good issues to have. Like, we can still get coached up on some of those things.
I'm not sure if you probably heard about it by now, but it's far from the biggest scandal in Patriots history. But there's been this whole rhubarb over the clapping possibly on a play to throw off Michael Penix's snap count on Sunday. Did you happen to see that? What'd you think about it? And did you ever have any accusations that people hurled at the Broncos or even the Redskins back in your day?
Oh yeah, I mean, we all are doing what we can to grab an advantage, and so, and Vrabel's a really smart dude. Like, he's really smart, and then the Patriots did that back in my day, where they would stem late on a play, and they'd have a word, where all their offensive or defensive linemen would shift really quick, and they'd have a word, for a stem. And, we used to complain about, hey, you're simulating the snap count, right? those are things that every team does that stuff. I don't get, there's a Patriots are cheap or dirty. The Broncos circumvented the salary cap when I was there, and because we deferred too much of the salary. It's all semantics and like all that stuff to me is garbage. Like whatever. Like everybody points the finger at a team after they lose to them and say, well, these guys did that. Meanwhile, we're not telling you all the things that we did that weren't appropriate. And man, I've been involved in a bunch of stuff that that you're trying to get an advantage. And hey, every now and again you get caught trying to get an advantage. I don't hate anybody for it. Like, good for you guys if you can get away with it. If it works, that's gamesmanship. That doesn't bother me at all.
Yep.
Whatever.
Bobby the Brain Heenan used to say it in WWF, right? If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying kind of mentality. And,
yeah.
I think there's a lot of coaches. Real quick before we let you go, the Chiefs and the Ravens are interesting teams right now still in the AFC. We saw Lamar get healthy. Do you think the Ravens make a run here? And what are your thoughts on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs after they fall to the Bills? Are they still a Super Bowl contender?
Yeah, I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to go reel in the Steelers and win that division. I mean, Cincinnati stinks. The Cleveland Browns stink. The Steelers feel a little bit like paper tigers right now, leading that division to me. Baltimore Ravens get healthy. They get some of their defensive players back. Obviously, Lamar back. I think they've got a chance to reel everybody in and win that division. So I'm gonna stick with that. And the Kansas City Chiefs, yeah, they didn't play great against Buffalo. Buffalo seems to be able to beat them in the regular season. Can't win in the playoffs. But yeah, I still think those two are still really good teams. I mean, if you look at right now, you look at the AFC, the three teams that lead it: Indianapolis 7-2, New England 7-2, and Denver are 7-2. And I think if you polled anybody, they would all say, "Hey, those are really good teams. They're really good, but are they the best teams in the AFC?" And I think most people would say, "Well, I'm not sure that I'm ready to give them the best team in the AFC moniker quite yet." So. I still think that the Chiefs and Baltimore are still very formidable in the AFC.
All right, Mark, have a good week, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Sounds good, guys. Be well.
See you, Mark.
See you, Stink.